Hello, and welcome to The Fool and the Philosopher.
The Philosopher and the Fool. Go on. What are we talking about?
Oh no, I'm not taking the role, Cameron.
You started.
All right, well
No peeking.
we're back together in Studio A, both in Studio A.
Right. Who would win? Captain Falcon or Tahu?
What?
Tahu.
Tahu, maybe?
Why?
He controls fire.
Continue.
Wait, is Tahu the toe of fire?
Yeah.
Yeah, he controls fire. And he can, I don't know, burn Captain America?
I said Captain Falcon.
He can burn Captain Falcon.
Captain Falcon can punch fire and he doesn't burn.
But Tahu's the master of fire, so all his punches will remove the fire and stuff.
But Tahu can be hurt by fire. He's not immune to fire.
Even when he's Tahu Nuva?
Tahu Nuva might be immune to fire.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's immune to fire.
I didn't say Tahu Nuva though.
But you didn't say Tahu
Mata.
either.
Yeah. Okay. Tahu Nuva.
Yeah. So he has a mask of shielding. He's a mask of strength.
Mask of speed. Mask of water breathing. Mask of flight.
Yeah.
I think it's flight. I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah. Mask of X-ray vision. He's got swords. He can control fire.
X-ray. He doesn't have X-ray vision.
No?
No.
Only Quebec has that?
Sure. He does have X-ray vision. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Mask of speed.
Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't really use those, does he?
He does. I think they just enhance his base characteristics.
But the only one that flies is Liwa.
Yeah.
Like, all of them have the ability to fly, but it's only Liwa who uses it. Seems like, and like the Anua is the strongest, and he's usually utilizing the strength.
Pahatu's the strongest. Anua has the Great Mask of Strength, though.
Oh, right. They have the greater mask,
Or something. Yeah.
and then they have the combination lesser masks. So,
Well, they're all great masks.
but doesn't Tahu has the great mask of shielding, right?
He's Kanoe How.
Yeah, the great mask of shielding.
Yeah.
So, I mean, can Falcon Punch break through the mask of shielding? Because it can't even break like a normal shield.
Yeah, that's a good point. It can damage them, so I think it would. I think the Mask of Shielding could stop it,
Yeah,
but it would.
shrink in size.
Yeah.
However, have you seen like the area of that thing? Like, remember the first Biological movie and how he like makes that giant globe around him and those Matoran to protect them from the lava flow?
Yeah.
So I think it has like a very long decay rate.
Well, it wouldn't decay. It's just it would take a couple punches to break through.
Well, it can actually be broken through.
I think the Reishi almost did.
Almost.
So, it could be possible.
But those are Reishi.
Yeah, it's Captain Falcon, Intergalactic Bounty Hunter. No, wait, that's Samus.
Yeah.
Samus versus Tahu.
Samus. She has a bomb on her suit that can destroy planets.
He's got the Mask of Shielding.
Okay, so he's floating in space.
No, he's on Matanui.
No, imagine he's blown up.
No, because if you try to bomb Matanui, Matanui will wake up and slap you out of the skies.
No, it's not her suit's jetpack literally falls off and it can blow up a whole planet.
Yeah, but Matanui's not going to let that happen, is he? He's going to whack it out of there. Or like Kilzarni or something is going to forge a mask of telekinesis and just chuck it away. Or Traga Vakama, he's good at making stuff. He can make like a mutation launcher and just turn her jetpack into a chicken or something. A hang glider from Breath of the Wild.
Why would any of them be there? It's her versus...
Yeah, but they're not just standing in the middle of nowhere. They're on a planet somewhere. And Tahu can't leave his planet, so they're on Matanui.
How would they even be aware that this bomb can do this? Like, the only one I think who could be aware of this is Makuta.
Or Matanui. He's a god.
He's asleep.
He might wake up if he was...
He's had an opportunity to wake up for hundreds of years, and he has it. Do you think a little bomb will wake him up?
Well, the bomb might wake him up if it goes off.
If it goes off, he's dead.
I don't know. He's pretty strong.
It destroys planets.
I think he has the Mask of Life.
It doesn't wipe out planets. It literally makes the planets come apart and explode.
Yeah, but he has the Mask of Life, so he might live.
Maybe.
And the Mana Crabs would all live. They're invincible.
Are they invincible?
Yeah.
I thought they could be hurt. They're just really tough.
I think they're invincible. They defeat them by pushing them off a cliff or something, I think.
Yeah.
Like they just get stuck down a crevasse. I don't think they're actually dead.
Okay, so there's like manaclabs angrily wiggling their legs in space and snapping their claws.
Yeah.
While Samus is flying off in her spaceship.
No, because then that's annoyed Brutaka and like the rest of the Intergalactic Space Police or whatever they're called.
Oh, the Vizak?
Yeah, like Boar and Axon and no, like Boar and Axon and Brutaka, the people that can trap people in a different dimension. And then they're going after Samus. They hired the Paraka the
planet's being
Avak,
blown up.
Avak traps her ship, and then the Shadow one has the power to teleport. Makuta's already there. Makuta is her ship. He was planned from the beginning.
So it starts from her fighting Pohatu.
To find Tahu.
Fighting Tahu to battling against the whole.
Well, if she
planet.
blows up the planet, there's going to be repercussions, so she can't just go with that option.
All right, fine. She shoots him with her upgrade charge shot.
Mask of shielding.
It goes through anything.
Mask of speed. He dodges.
She's on a 2D plane. He can't dodge.
Yeah, he can.
No,
he can move in 3 dimensions. And it's Metroid Prime Samus, anyways.
If we're going with the strongest Metroid Primes, are we going with like her base form or her strongest suit?
With like a normal Samus versus a normal Tahu.
A normal
Nuva.
Samus loses all her powers.
But like a sort of medium Samus, like the Smash Bros. Samus, sort of like mid-ground, sort of.
So Samus has to start a mission before she loses all her powers?
Yeah, medium Tahu versus medium Samus. So Tahu's Tahu Nuva. Yeah. He's not Traga Tahu, if that ever happens. And he's not Tahu Mata.
And he's not Tahu Jetpack.
And he's not Tahu Jetpack.
Yeah. Or Tahu on Glatorial Planet.
Yeah. He's not Tahu Steroids. And he's not Tahu Master of Fire!
Yeah.
He's just Tahu Nuva.
Okay. So, Tahu Nuva.
Yeah.
Nuva.
No.
So, Tahu Nova.
Yeah, Nuva versus Samus.
All right.
With like her orange suit.
Okay. So, they both have super speed.
Yeah.
Although hers is faster, I think.
Okay, what's the greatest feats? Okay, so Pohatu ran down a mountain quickly.
She can she can traverse a whole space station in about 20 seconds.
Well, that's like a speedrunner's plane.
Yeah, that's her maximum feat of doing that super sprint.
But that's like her on a really good day.
Yeah, but I'm saying that's
like saying that I'm as fast as Usain Bolt because the best like a really well controlled human can run as fast as Usain Bolt.
Well, but I'm saying like she can just start that speed run though. Like if there's nothing in her way, like that super speed is insanely fast.
Right.
But it's probably harder to control.
But how fast can when there's a problem on the island, they tend to be able to go to the problem, right? Now the island's big enough to have it's basically Hawaii, their island, right? It has a big volcano in the center. And that's like 2 hours to drive around Hawaii. So they might be as fast as like a car.
Yeah, she's faster than a car. That super sprint's absurdly fast.
Okay, so
especially actually in the Metro games where it's the 3D, you go very fast with that.
So she's got a slight speed advantage, maybe.
It's hard to control though.
Okay.
So she can, but if she runs into you at that speed, it's you that gets hurt because she's indestructible while in super speed.
Right. Okay. She's got lots of missiles.
Yep.
She's got a bunch of like that charge shot thing that isn't a charge shot. I don't know, like plasmas. What is it? Anyways,
she's ice missiles.
Mm-hmm. So
super bombs.
Tahu can melt ice. We know that.
Yeah, but the ice missiles like freeze you in place.
Yeah, so can Kopaka, and Tahu has melted free of that.
Okay. She can jump infinitely in the air with her corkscrew.
Okay.
The gravity corkscrew, anyways, which is in her basic kit.
Okay.
So she can basically fly, but she might get motion sick after a while.
Right.
She can turn into an orb and speed around and drop bombs.
So her biggest advantage over Tahu, I think, is her range and her speed.
And her durability, I think.
Tahu's very durable as well. Because he's got the Mask of Shielding.
Well, the Mask of Shielding has to be activated while her suit can take a ridiculous beating.
Can Samus go underwater?
Depends on which upgrade she has. Her basic suit can.
Okay, so...
But when she loses the underwater atmosphere thing, it's harder for her.
Can she surf on lava?
She can survive in lava with the right upgrade. So she can actually walk through lava.
Okay.
And she has that in the suit you're talking about.
Now, her maneuverability would be hampered because Tahu is a leader, so he will have 5 other Toa with him. Be able to
Okay.
surround her.
Well, she's also a leader of a squad of bounty hunters.
Well, you don't lead this squad. They're all like lone wolves that are just forced together by the circumstances.
No, they're all her really good friends. And they work with her as a squad, and then they all get killed.
But we didn't say we could have like... they're dead, so they don't count.
And Tahu's not allowed his group either.
Why not? They're alive.
Okay.
All right, so... And he also has the Traga advising him, because he's a hero, so he listens to his elders.
Okay, she has a spaceship.
But she also has... she has that commander as her advisor.
Oh dear.
And...
No, but this is basic Samus, not...
Ooh, he has the Mask of Wisdom. So he'll just be like, your parents died, and then she'll be like, woohoo, I'll never have children.
That's not canon.
And then she'll...
That's not canon. We're talking about Prime here. She's over that by now. She's very stable.
Let's see.
She has a charge shot. If her armor's destroyed, then she can keep on fighting afterwards, and she gets decreased mobility, strength, lesser weapons. But she can keep on fighting after her armor's destroyed. And it can reform,
Right.
given enough time. So you basically have to kill her while she's on the run, and then she gets her armor back.
So Samus, she's able to see the weak spot of things, right?
Yep.
But Tahu is a robot, so he has no weak spots.
But she has an energy whip, so she can pull off his mask.
But he's wearing like 6 masks.
Yeah, so she'll pull one off and then put it on. She takes upgrades all the times. He's at risk of losing his upgrades to her.
Yeah, but she's gonna have to whip him a lot of times to get all his masks.
Yeah, but every time she gets one, she gets stronger.
Right.
And if it's Samus at the end of her run, then she's got like a parasite in her. She's like a space parasite that can eat things.
Right, but if it's Tahu when he's defeated by the Reikshi, then he's poisoned as well. Meaning if she takes his mask, she might be mind controlled by Makuta.
No, she eats things that poisons her. But we're going with Metroid Prime, so.
Right. So Tahu knows the location of the Borok Queens, so he could unleash them.
All right, she's fought worse.
Actually, yeah, she kind of... Well, has she though?
Yeah, she's fought Mother Brain.
Yeah, but the Borok can like have control over gravity, oxygen, magnetism.
She's fought that.
Really?
Yep.
Magnetism?
Yep.
Hmm.
She can survive in a vacuum.
Right. Gravity.
Yep, there's an enemy that controlled gravity that she fought.
Kraid? Does he control gravity?
I think it's Kraid.
Because he flips the stage around in Smash Bros.
Yeah, there's several enemies that have controlled gravity. One of them made it like heavier on her, another one like flipped it around. She's fought them. Her suit has a module in it that gives her gravity control as well.
All right, so she's breaking the law by entering a planet without immigrating, right? So she hasn't gone through any checkpoints. So the Vazki, or whatever they're called, the Vaki, the police officers, are going to arrive, and they're indestructible.
No, they aren't. Makuta killed them.
No, he didn't. He warped them. They're indestructible.
Okay, so
they have this staff of disintegration, the staff of mind control.
She's immune to mind control.
Okay, is she immune to disintegration?
You have to be touched by it.
And
her armor can reform.
Tahu could hire the Paraka, and then Hazon would just vaporize her.
All right. She can shoot her charge shot and destroy anything in its path.
She couldn't kill the Black Paraka because he's immune to anything that hasn't killed him.
What? No. That's not how he works.
Yeah, if he survives anything, he's immune to it.
Yeah, I don't think he can survive the charge shot.
He's already been hit by a charge shot, probably.
Not that one.
But if he fell off a mountain and he was fine. It's not like that he has to fall off every mountain on Earth.
No, but it's her energy shots are a different energy than what's normally in the universe.
You don't think
magic space bacteria energy?
You don't think he got Azok, whatever his name is, to make like a bunch of every frequency possible?
He wouldn't trust Azok to do that. Azok would probably come up with one that could kill him.
And
he definitely wouldn't trust Azok to do that.
Or Azok might not do it because he would want a way to kill him.
Yeah.
Zamor spheres. Is Samus immune to Zamor spheres? Probably not.
She's going to hit the things equivalent to them.
Actually, you know what? They're kind of basically like the X...
Parasite,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Brutaka might banish her to hell.
Alright, so Perdaka has to open up a portal you get sucked into, right?
I think Samus could beat Tahu, okay? But Tahu's Mask of Shielding would definitely help him.
Yes, it would. One of the Samus's armors can actually generate a shield ball around herself. It's one of the upgrades in the melee fight.
Right.
where it's in the battle mode in the Metroid game on the DS, you can find an upgrade that generates a force field around you.
Who's stronger though, like Tahu or Samus?
Like in muscle strength?
Yeah, because Tahu's the Great Mask of Strength.
Well, like what's the heaviest thing he's lifted?
I don't know, but Pohatu kicked a boulder.
Okay.
With apparent ease, and and Onua held up a mine shaft. And Tahu should be equivalent strength.
Tahu's a little bit weaker.
I guess like they all have the same masks, don't they? I don't really know
but
how that works.
Onua's inherent upper body strength is better than any of the others.
Because it's upside down.
Yes.
Yeah. He actually has a smaller upper body.
No, that's Pohatu. Onua has the larger upper body.
Oh, wait. No, sorry. I don't know. Anyways, yeah.
That's Onua.
Yeah. Onua also, his main mask is the Mask of Strength.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that means.
Well, he held up a mine shaft.
Yeah.
I think that Samus's greatest strength of holding something open was a door. A giant metal door she held up.
So Tahu's probably stronger.
Might be.
And he's got flame swords.
Yeah.
So
she's got a gun.
He's got flame swords. And if you go by the Bionicle Hero for the Wii, then he can also shoot... Well, he can't, but
no.
Jala and stuff can.
Yeah.
And, oh, okay. Another thing in Tahu's favor. Yeah. He's a demigod.
Okay. Thing in her favor. So there's these deity-like bird creatures in the universe that create monsters to basically fix the problems of the universe, and she has that in her DNA.
Right.
So she's basically a space demigod.
Yeah.
She's got space bird god DNA.
He's got space giant robot DNA.
She's wearing a robot suit and has three eyes.
So's he. He's got 2 eyes, though.
Yeah, she has 3 eyes.
But
she has 3 eye sockets. She doesn't actually have 3 eyes.
But his worst enemy, best friend, whatever they are, has 1 eye. So together, they have 3 eyes.
Well, if she has her best friend, then she's,
Okay. Could Toa Lee Khan beat Tahu?
No, because Tahu's a Toa brought by the gods. He's like an insanely strong Toa.
But Toa Lee Khan has the power of 6 lesser Toa.
Yeah, but they have the great masks, which I think are better than any of the other masks. Especially the Toa Nuva, or they're like demigods.
Yeah. But Takanuva... Could Takanuva beat Tahu? Probably. And Takanuva has Toa Lee Khan's mask.
Takanuva?
Yeah, the Toe of Light. Although he loses it and gets the Mask of Light, I guess.
Yeah.
So he doesn't really have Toa Lee Khan's mask.
Yeah, and Matoran can't use masks.
Yeah.
Very well. They actually can use them. In the comics, they do.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. In the comics, you know how they have the little Matoran sidekicks, each one of them?
Yeah.
Not Nuju. Or was it Nuju, the ice one?
Yeah.
Yeah, his sidekick, I think, at one point gets a Mask of Levitation.
Motoro.
Yeah, it's Motoro.
Yeah, he dies.
No, not Motoro. Nuju's sidekick isn't Motoro.
Oh, you mean Nuju's friend?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, him.
Yeah, Nuju's Matoran. Gets the Mask of Levitation.
No, Nuju is the Toa Metru of ice.
Yeah. Yeah, and his Matoran,
yeah,
that works with him, gets the Mask of Levitation in the comics and can use it for a short while, but it knocks him unconscious because it's really tiring on non-Toa.
Right.
You are listening to The Fool and the Philosopher.
How do you feel about grids?
Grids?
In D&D.
Oh, in D&D.
For fighting.
I have mixed opinions on grids.
Because I never used them. And then I've started using them, and I really like it. And then...
Sorry, it's just, how do you feel about this? I have mixed feelings. Shut up! Slap! Alright, here's my opinion. I'll just ask you so I can talk about it.
No, see, I'm giving my opinion to influence what you were saying already.
Yep, okay.
It makes sense.
Go on. Carry on.
So, grids, right?
Yeah.
I used them. No, I didn't use them.
Yes.
And then I started using them, and I liked them. But then I read this article by the Angry GM talking about this method he had for fighting that was way better, where instead of using grids, you just keep in mind they are 2 turns away, not however many feet, and you can't... Because the important thing is, when you go behind a rock, you're not actually trying to move behind a rock. What you're actually trying to do is take cover. So it encourages the players to say, I take cover behind that rock. And that also means it doesn't matter where your opponent's standing when they shoot at you, you are taking cover behind that rock. Versus the idea of you just getting shot and like, hey, I didn't want to get shot, I was trying to take cover. And you're like, oh, well, you're standing at the wrong angle.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, it's like, okay, the goblin hides behind the rock. You're like, okay, I can't shoot him. And it also means that if they, like, spells in 5th edition are designed to hit 2 opponents, apparently, on average.
Yeah.
So if they say, how many people can I get with a fireball? You say 2. You say you can just about get 2 goblins. And then they're like, I'm going to wait for them to bunch up. And they're like, okay, if you wait 1 turn, they'll be bunched up and you can get 3. You give them the risk-reward sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which is what I did before I had the grids, basically, already. So yeah, how do you feel about that?
Well, I have mixed opinions on grids, as I was saying earlier, because I do like them for visual representation on the field. I like knowing where things are, and the players like knowing where things are, and when I'm playing, I like knowing where they are. There's another system, which I really like, which I haven't used, which is, the Star Wars space battle game, where you draw lines off your spaceships and you basically have a ruler amount of distance, or like just a tabletop war game where it's like you have a measuring tape of how far you can go. I like those as well. Like you put your models down and then you just measure where they go. I like that system because it gives you a little more freedom of movement, and it's a representation so you can see the battlefield, but then you can also have like, I move here to hide behind the rock, like you could say that with that. So I like that system. It's just my players don't like it. So
I don't like that system because in wargaming and in ship armada games, that is a good system because it's about taking risks and trying to calculate distances.
Yeah.
In D&D, it really sucks if you end up being like half an inch away from your opponent. When what you wanted to do... And the thing about D&D in particular is all that... In D&D, you get to do 3 things a turn, basically.
Yeah.
You get to attack, you get to move, and you get to do like a bonus action.
Yeah.
So it doesn't actually matter how many feet away they are. You just have to say you're 2 moves away.
Yeah.
And the other thing you could do is just say you're, let's say a bow has a range of 3 moves. Like you could actually design D&D that way.
But people, it like depends on players all the time because they like seeing physical representations.
Yeah, well, they like to see the physical battlefield. The other thing is...
actually one thing I did do is I used to, like, Dave Adams, hey, I just put models on the board, and it's like, oh, I want to attack that person. I'm like, yeah, I don't think you can reach them this turn. So I'm saying, like, you get part of the way to them, and I had to move them all part way. And then they go, but I moved further last time. It's like, it's just a representation, like, sort of around the map.
Yeah, so you can see where you are, you know where you are.
Yeah.
You have that nice visual feedback.
Yeah.
The other advantage, I think, is it allows differences in stats to become more apparent, such as movement. So if an elf moves 50 feet per turn and a dwarf moves 30, then it's a lot more obvious how many moves away things actually are.
Yeah.
I was thinking of a sort of hybrid system where the DM has a map that he doesn't share with anyone. And he just places them approximately. And then you can be like, well, that dwarf is... I would say that's about 60 feet away. So it says 65 feet. I'll just tell him it's 2 moves. And that elf is 75 feet away. So I'll say 2 moves as well. Why not?
Yeah.
And so the DM can keep track of the battlefield. The players can too if they want. And they can keep asking you questions because it's not like you're mapping. You should know what you can see around you.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that's one of the things, like, just in a physical map, when, like, adventurers are exploring a dungeon, I sometimes, like, I've come with one system, which I was trying to do, which, House on a Hill, how you draw tiles?
Yeah.
I just made a bunch of tiles, and basically each room was random and had, like, random encounters. So it was, like, a procedurally generated dungeon, which I had a lot of fun doing. But other times, like, all right, this dungeon, I'd, like, throw down sticky notes, and each one would have, like, more of the dungeon once they explored the room. Because I've done dungeons where I have a map. I'm telling the players, all right, so you have this path here and this path here, and describe rooms, and then they get confused. And they're like, wait, where are we? So that's happened sometimes. Other times with players, I, like, tell them where they're going, and they start drawing a map of the layout, which is actually in the rules of one of the editions, which is, like, a point-a-mapper. And basically they're going through a dungeon, and they're drawing a map, because you have to know where you are in the dungeon. Because they can be confusing.
I think exploration maps are not good, personally. Because they limit the world to staring at a grid rather than being in a cave or looking here and saying, wait, what if there's something over here? What if there's something over here?
The thing I do is I just have rooms. Like, this is this room. You go into this room. This is what it looks like. And then this door goes into this room.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. Like, I have basically rooms. And I have a grid for myself. So I can sort of understand where people are. And they'll sort of draw like, okay, this room's bigger than the other room. So it's going to take up 4 tiles. But it's not like 4 times as big. It's just a bigger room.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time it is to the players. Like, if they're like, I'm getting super confused here, can you just show us the map? Then I'll like sketch out a rough map for them.
I think they should keep track if they want to know where they are.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't know, it depends on how you want to do it. Because the players aren't their characters entirely. You don't have to demonstrate your martial prowess to have a character with a high martial skill. Yeah. So if a player says, I want to go back to the whatever room we were in, you can just be like, okay, you guys walk into there.
Yeah. No, I definitely,
But at the same time, maybe it depends on the group.
Yeah, no, you definitely have to judge the group. Like, one of the things I did definitely for combat is I did a hybrid critical hit system. Because critical hits can be fun, and like you can go, oh, roll the percentiles or deal double damage, whatever. So basically I do like the first hit of the combat, or whatever, first critical hit would be like roll the percentiles. But then the enemy's first hit, they'd also get roll percentiles. Or if you get a critical failure after getting a critical hit, roll percentiles. Or it's like, oh, I got a critical failure, roll percentiles. Then the next hit that was critical, you get to roll. So it's basically like there'd always be, whenever there's a percentile roll, there'd be one for the other side. Was sort of a thing I did. Or they just asked me like, oh, can this be like per percentile one? I was like, oh, sure, yeah, let's roll percentiles for this.
I don't really understand what you mean.
So normal critical hits in 5th edition is double damage.
Yeah.
But I have a chart which basically says what critical hits do that I've partly memorized and I have in my head. And so I'll like come up with something depending on the roll of the dice. And so they can be really good things if you roll high on Chris' table. So it's basically like, instead of just getting double damage for like your hit, you can like have something really interesting happen.
Yes.
And so, but I won't do that all the time with critical hits. Like, I maybe do that like 1/4 of the time, and the rest of the time it'd be double damage.
But if you do it for the players, you do it for the monsters.
Yeah. So for every one the players get, the monsters get 1, or it's if there's a critical failure, then there's 1 for the critical failure, and they can be really bad.
Right. And
so it's basically balancing them. And it just like adds a bit of fun randomness and like can add a little bit of story to the game.
And how's it tie back to maps?
It's just talking about like you have to suit to the players.
Right.
Because like I said, we can do the system or we can do this one. They're like, I like that, but can we do a mix? And then they like ask me, oh, can this one be like roll percentiles this time? Because like this is an important hit in the combat. And like we really need to kill this enemy because he's quite dangerous right now. So can we roll percentiles because we got a crit here? It's like, oh, sure. And then they like roll a 95 on the percentile table and they'd all get really excited because that's like times 6 damage.
Right. So if they say, hey, can we have a map? You're like, okay, here's a map.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that could work. The advantage, one of the big advantages of no map is that it allows you to, one of the big advantages of no map is that it means if you get attacked in a corridor or you're entering a room that was just a side room, or you're attacked in the streets or in the forest, you don't have to waste time drawing a map or have a map drawn for every circumstance ahead of time.
Yeah.
So it gives you more flexibility.
But you have to be good at describing a scene.
And I think another issue with maps is they make you think in terms of the grids rather than in terms of what's possible. If you're fighting in a forest and you see like a little area cordoned off here and a little, that's a tree, you can't go there, there's a tree here, you never think about climbing the trees or cutting off a branch from the tree or swinging from a tree branch, because you're looking at it from more of a video game perspective where you're limited.
Well, even in the campaign I was doing recently, I did a mix of that. Like some combats, there was no map, and it would be in a forest, and they're like all climbing up trees and jumping around. And I said, "Oh, you can't make him to him this turn." Like I just say that, or yeah, you can get to him this turn. Yeah, you're about close enough to get to him. And then other battles, like okay, I'm going to use a map for this battle because you're inside a building that's very architecturally built, and like these are the features in it. So I do mix. Like I jump back and forth a lot of the time.
Personally, for me, I find without the maps, battles tend to feel like they happen in a straight line, where you have the fighting zone, the middle zone, and the ranged zone. And they don't feel that tactically interesting, even though in theory they should have more motion. They feel very static to me. They feel like a series of I fight him, I fight him, I fight him, occasionally broken up with it'll take you one turn to get there, so they'll shoot at you for that turn. Whereas with a map, you can try to maneuver between two guys, and then...
Well, that's why there's the sub-map thing where you just have a bunch of tokens and you're like, oh, here's some model trees, and you put them down, and here's like a barn square, and then someone's like, okay, I'm going to climb up to this thing, and they like move their little model on to help out the barn. Or like, yeah, I want to go over there. It's like, okay, yeah, you move over there, and then you can have sort of the mix of it being like the described scene, but also there's the representation on the map, so they can sort of see where they are and do tactics from there. Like, I'm going to run over here, hide behind this bush, and shoot arrows from it.
So, like, Disciples, the video game,
yeah,
where you fight, you have two lines, and you just take turns hitting each other. It's basically Pokemon.
Yeah.
So, Pokemon fighting. That's what I feel like D&D without a map can be sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's fine, but it's not that interesting, whereas a map done right, I think, can play a bit more like XCOM.
Yeah.
Where you have interesting decisions, and it's all about interesting decisions.
Yeah.
So I don't really know where I land on that. I also think it depends on the rules you're playing with.
Definitely.
Like 5th edition, I think, doesn't need a map.
Yeah.
4th edition can probably be done without a map, but it'd be harder.
Masquerade doesn't use maps, I don't think, or a lot of the time doesn't. Because a lot of it is based on the powers of vampires in combat. And like which opponent you decide to attack and how you maneuver with your other allies.
I've heard Masquerade combat's actually fairly boring, but I don't. That was just one person's opinion I heard.
Yeah.
So, my system, the First Heroes, might need a map at this point. I'm not sure.
Well, have you addressed the infinite hit problem?
Well, that's why I think it needs a map, because I've played it the whole time without a map, right? Yeah. And as you know, there's an issue where certain hero builds can hit like 20 times a turn.
Yeah.
But if you play this exact same hero on a map, you realize that they can only hit like 3 times a turn because
there's only 3 targets.
Because they have to maneuver, and if you, it's nothing if you're just going like, okay, I move, I hit that guy, and then that guy's 1 foot away, so I hit him, and then that guy's 1. But if you actually have to do those little actions each time, you run out of movement super fast.
Yeah.
And it actually makes the game a lot more tolerable because you're attacking way less.
Yeah.
If you use a map. And I don't know if that means...
Well, I think it's also, even when you're describing combat without a map, it comes down to the point of how you're actually describing it as a DM.
Like, because if you're describing it out loud and you're like, you're a little bit away from each of these 3 guys, I guess you could say, okay, that'll take up 2 movement, then that'll take up 2 movement, then that'll take up 2 movement. It doesn't really allow the player to plan ahead, but maybe they shouldn't be able to anyways.
Well, I don't know what other people's like abilities are, but I can like make 3D objects in my mind. Like I can form 3D maps in my head and know the space of everything and get like a general layout of something.
Yeah.
So I'm very good at holding 3D space in my mind. And so I, like in my descriptions, that's what I'm doing. I'm basically like pulling from my head and telling the players what's going on, and then they react to a map that's in my mind.
In that case, you might as well have the map on the table, I think.
Well, it still has more freedom of movement, like, in some ways. It's not even map, it's like a scene, basically.
Yeah.
That I'm telling them what's going on.
And I find that's the sort of thing that's seen, I find, is very boring. Because it just turns into like a linear slugfest. Because you
hit the monster, you hit the monster, you hit the monster.
Yeah, it becomes, I hit the monster, I move towards the monster, I hit the monster, I move towards the monster. Whereas if you have a grid, you can say, I move sideways.
Yeah, well, I think one thing that does allow, and you have to be willing to give, like, first of all, you have to be willing to come up with it, but also give your players more freedom, is like a player can basically go, all right, I'm going to climb up this tree and then jump onto the monster's back.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, yeah, make an athletics roll for that, and then we'll see what happens from there. Or it's like, I'm going to basically tackle the monster into this chasm. Like, I'm going to jump, grab, and tackle into this chasm. I want to try that.
So I wonder if...
basically, if you're doing, I think, a scene without a map, I think you have to allow your players to have more freedom.
So I wonder if the best solution would actually be to quickly, on a piece of scratch paper, draw a map, not on a grid, though, just draw a map, and then give it dimensions. So this map is 20 by 30 feet. Chuck the players on it, And then you don't show that map to the players, or you can show the map to the players with the understanding that my decisions are arbitrary.
Yeah.
This map is flexible. And you say like, okay, so you're about here. So you're on the top right of this map. The monster's on the bottom left of the map.
Yeah.
That is 3 movements apart. And they go, okay, so I charge towards the monster, and I'll get there in 3 movements.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, and that way you can make like, I'm here now. How far is that? Well, that would be 1 square away extra if you were playing D&D normally, but it's close enough. That's 2 moves, not 3.
Yeah.
But then the problem with that is players will want consistency. So they'll say, hey, that was 3 moves last time. Why isn't it 3 moves? This similar distance, why isn't that 3 moves?
Well, like I said, you have to fit it to your players because the people I played with were not sticklers for stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, can I get over there? It's like, why not? Like, yeah, we'll do that because they want to do that. It doesn't make that big of a difference. So yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, I think you should.
And then maybe the monster will get extra 2 movement as well.
I think you should err on the side of being generous.
Yeah.
Because why not?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean make it easy for the players. It just means make it interesting.
Yeah.
The other thing the Angry DM, which he goes on and on about in tons of his articles, is what is the player willing to sacrifice for this move? So if they say, I'm going to do like a running leap and like put all my force behind a sword and hit them, and you're like, well, you're 1 foot short. No, that's not what you do. You go, okay, but if you mess this, you're gonna have to spend a whole turn standing back up.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, okay, I'm ready to do it. And then you give them like double damage or something if they pull it off, because you're like, so it's actually a game of gambling where it's basically like, I will give you this much. How much risk will that cost me? And how much do I win? And you're like, well, I'll give you risk to 3 odds. Like, you'll do times 3 damage, but you'll gain 4 risk or whatever.
Yeah, well, I've had cases like where my player, like, oh, there's 3 enemies standing in a row here. I have a giant sword. Even though they don't have any abilities, like, can I hit all 3 enemies with 1 sweep? Like, sure, but you're going to have to, like, roll a hit each one of them. And if you mess up, there's consequences for that. And so I have a player, he swung the sword, like, cut one of the goblins in half. Then his sword got stuck halfway in the other goblin.
Yeah.
And then the third one poked him with his spear because he's, like, stuck there at a huge disadvantage. And now the goblin's just like, ha and pokes him.
Yeah. And, like, the other example, that's a good one. And an example he gave, which I really liked, was a guy jumps off a cliff onto the head of a dragon with his spear.
Yeah.
And he's like, he heard one guy talk about it as a DM, and he's like, yeah, well, I was able to factor in, like, the wind and the charging bonus, and I gave him the whatever bonus, and the Angry DM was like, no, if he rolls a success, he kills the dragon. If he rolls a fail, he misses and dies.
He goes splat.
It's like, he wagered everything on that. Just give it to him if he succeeds.
Yeah, basically. Like, they understand that there's consequences, or make your players understand there's consequences for their actions.
Yeah.
Because, like, this absolutely absurd thing happened, which I had the players in a trap room. And it was this incredibly nasty room full of tons of traps. And they're basically, like, trying to figure out these traps as they go. And each trap's a little different. And one of the traps I had was this giant mesh wall of invisible wires. And it's basically like a misconception trap. They thought it was like statues that shoot lasers. So like, oh, we'll run past this super fast and then we can dodge them, but they like run into this mesh wall. But what they decided to do is their monk got a haste spell cast off him. Then he ran onto the dwarf's back and jumped while the dwarf stood up, so like springboard him and went flying into the wall and used one of his special abilities to give him additional movement. And then he hit this giant wall of mesh in mid-air. I'm just like, what do I do here? Because they're trying to be super clever, but this trap basically like turned him into giblets. And so I introduced like fate points.
Yeah.
Which is, if you spend them, then you don't die instantly.
Yeah.
So they had 3 fate points for that dungeon. And so basically got stuck halfway because his bones stopped him. Because if he hadn't used that, he just would have been like cubified. So he stops there. And we're like, get the cleric over here! And they drag him off the wall and like kill him with the cleric. But it's like, something has to happen for him to this. So he got so sliced up that his brain was like cubified. And so he's gone slightly insane was like the penalty for that. But it's just like, when they said like, oh, they're so proud of this plan. I'm just like,
I feel so bad.
Yeah, it's basically like, oh no, that plan's really not going to work.
Yeah,
it was brutal. Like
that's just unfortunate.
I was really considering just like, yep, you're cubified, but I was like, no, I can't do that.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
That's basically that's the point where it's like, okay, so you guys have this fate system now. Like I basically told them that, and you have 3 fate points for this whole dungeon, and they can stop you from dying, or you can spend them on things. Like one of the things that happened is they attacked this goblin sorcerer who had a bunch of Molotov cocktails on him, and so he threw down a fireball and killed himself with it because they're surrounding him. They hit the ground, and then all the cocktails exploded. And fire pooled around all these unconscious players, so they're going to burn to death. And they said, all right, so you can spend the fate point so the Molotov cocktails don't explode and basically like leave a puddle of fire so you're not slowly burning to death. Like, yeah, I think we'll do that.
So going back to the mesh, what happened there in a way, going to like the players are gambling risk versus reward, they didn't know what the risk was.
Yeah.
So
because it was a trap.
Yeah, so you lessened the risk to what they thought it was, maybe.
Yeah.
Or they were, it was like you go to a slot machine and you see the reward. You know what the reward is, but you don't know how much the slot machine costs. And you're like, I'll use that one. And the like casino owner's like, yikes. Okay, well, slow down, buddy. How much are you actually willing to spend? And it's like, $10. You're like, okay, you can spend $10. You're not going to get as big of a prize. But trust me, you do not want to use this machine. Here, use this machine over here.
Yeah.
This machine shoots you in the head if you don't get like 3 sevens in a row.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. Well, see, I had this place designed out, so it's basically like it's a slow baiting thing. Where it's like there's floor traps. There's a lot of floor traps to start with. And then there's traps like shoot things across the side. And then there's a few traps hanging in the air. So it's basically meant to make you second guess yourself. Yeah. And I just wanted them to be super cautious and go through this thing carefully. And then they're like, all right, they're basically, I think we know how this dungeon works now. And they didn't. And one of the unfortunate things is their like whole party has a ton of light spells they never utilized. Like they're always like, oh, I want to cast light in this situation. And I felt bad for like never having light give them advantage. So like the solve to this dungeon was if you cast light, it will cause reflections to appear on certain statues. And each glint is basically like the path through. And for this single dungeon, they didn't use any of their light spells that they were constantly casting beforehand. I was like, all right, I'll give you guys like a dungeon that you can actually like, oh yeah, her light spells work this time. And they didn't. And so that was like part of the like, it was super deadly to them because they just stopped doing what they were doing.
Yeah, I guess they had just
given up on it.
Yeah, given up on light. So yeah, grids are...
Yeah, I basically do what I think is appropriate at the time, is my opinion. What I feel like, basically.
Yeah. The other issue with grids in my first Heroes is I noticed it's actually a little annoying to count because I do them in 1 foot grids, right?
Yeah.
That's a little annoying to count.
Yeah.
And so I did a different system which is in 3 foot grids, and it's much easier to count because you move 4 spaces per turn at most, basically.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is to make that work with my rule set, there's like 6 other rules you have to know. And the rules are like, you can't move diagonal unless it's your last move, and it'll cost 4 movement instead of 3. And you can't attack diagonally unless you do this. And reach doesn't matter anymore, except if it's over 3 feet, in which case it lets you attack from a space away, and you gain an advantage against dodging, and the dodging rules have changed. And so it makes it weird. But it does also... I did think that the reach system was a little weird anyways, because standing apart from your opponent to attack them does feel strange.
Well, do you know what the reach system did in first edition?
Probably who got to attack first.
Yep, that was it.
Yeah.
It's who got to attack first.
Yeah. Which is how they do it in Hackmaster as well.
Yeah. However, rogues with daggers is basically you could close in and then you get to attack first.
Yeah, so what I did with my dodge system to change it, because dodging just slowed the game down.
Yeah.
And it was, I like the idea of being able to work on either dodging or defense, but dodging slows the game down because you have to ask, are you going to dodge? And then if they want to dodge, they have to roll, and then it slows it down a little bit. And it's not too bad, but when I'm doing a test run where I'm playing 4 players and keeping track of the monsters, I just don't do any dodging at all because I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
So how I've changed dodging now is dodging is the maximum amount of dexterity you can spend during a dodge action. And to do a dodge action, you move away that many feet. And so what you do is when you attack, you say, I'm doing an attack +4, which means you attack and you move forward 4 feet. And if your opponent says like, I dodge 5 feet, then you miss.
Okay.
Essentially.
Hmm.
And so you can like dance around the battlefield.
Yeah.
And also lure people away.
Which is basically what dodging is, because it's exhausting to dodge for too long. Like,
yeah.
I know that from Active Combat. Like, if you're constantly on the retreat or ducking and dodging around, it gets exhausting.
Yeah. And so I thought it represents dodging better, and it's a lot easier to keep track of.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's ideal still, because it means that you can always avoid an attack. On the other hand...
You can get forced in the corners, though.
Yeah. And it also means you're using up all your movement.
Yeah.
And if the person's much quicker than you, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
But the... what was it? The other issue is declaring attacks is already annoying enough in a way. Like, I attack their head with my spear. And then you want to add, all right, I attack with +4 movement and I'm aiming for their head. Like, you could probably get used to it pretty quickly. Like, head +4. Torso +6. Like, just... Or... And if they never say it, just assume default 0 in torso.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the time you are going to just do neutral, because what you might as well do is just attack someone. Yeah. And then they'll step away. And then you move towards them and attack them again. And it's mostly the same effect for you.
Yeah.
So it just means if you can only attack once that turn, then you've missed out. And it also means they can disengage from combat that way.
Yeah.
Because I've also sort of added attacks of opportunity, but... In my system, they're kind of weird to add in, so I'm not sure how to do that perfectly. But I think it's a good idea to be able to lock people down with fights.
Yeah.
But D&D, I find, is a little too stiff. You just kind of pair off with the enemy, hit them until one of you dies, and then you move to the next one. And it's not meant to be that way.
Well, it's actually very interesting, 5th edition, if you read the rules on advantage and attack. And I actually found this made combat a lot funner, which is... So to get advantage in combat, you have to have an enemy on either side. So you have to draw a straight line through someone, and then if you attack, you get advantage, and that's pretty good for some people. And so combat actually turns into this sort of dance, because if you can you can rotate around someone entirely, and they don't get opportunities if you move a space away. And so this combat sort of turned into like these spinning, like the figures were basically
so they move.
Yeah, so they're constantly spinning around each other trying to get advantage. And then the enemy like, all right, I can disengage here, and this turn I won't get to attack. But then my buddy gets to attack with advantage here. And he's the elite monster. So the elite monster has a higher chance to hit. He deals more damage. And he gets more attacks than me. So I give my buddy this this extra attack, basically. Yeah. And I forfeit it.
That's actually a really good idea.
And then the rogues are constantly like, all right, you go here, just give me advantage, because if I attack with advantage, I deal like an extra 2d6 damage.
I think that's a really good idea, because in third and... I don't know enough about fourth, really, but third and fourth, let's say, you're allowed to move and attack on your turn.
Yeah. But
you normally only attack. Moving's only for like the first 2 turns of combat.
Yeah.
So that way you're always moving and attacking, which is good.
Yeah. There's also, in 3.5, actually, there was rules about charging. And so there was a thing about, like, charge and disengage and charge and disengage. But...
And if you look at, like, 2nd edition, it was kind of the Pokemon lineup for fights.
Yeah.
Because they have rules for, like, fighting 300 goblins, which is, like, it just attacks at double strength and has, like, 400 health.
Yeah.
And that's all there is to it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so you are basically just...
It was more the idea of, you're fighting 400 goblins. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's not so much about the maneuvering and tactical fighting. 2nd edition is actually less of a fighting game.
Actually, so...
Even though it's based on a war game.
So the 400 goblins. So the final battle that the party did, like, of our campaign, was there's a horde of goblins, and they had a necromancer on their side. And the necromancer starting off by casting Cloud Kill, which is basically like this giant cloud of death.
Yeah.
But the goblins like maneuvered away from it, and it's like a slow spell, doesn't cover a huge amount of area. And they're all gathered. It's like, hey, this necromancer can only cast this one spell, it's a strong spell, and it's called the Ring of Death. What does that do? And so I look at its rules, and like, oh my. So the necromancer just points, casts Ring of Death, and 50 goblins just fall down dead. And it's like, okay, my plans for this whole battle was like the goblins are going to weaken the necromancer, but he's going to kill all of them, and then he's going to turn on the party, but he'll be weak enough for them to like have a chance to fight him. But then the necromancer just straight up murders all the goblins with one spell. I was like, oh dear.
Yeah. I think the no grid system also makes that sort of thing easier because you didn't actually have 50 goblin models on a map, right?
I did.
Did you?
Yep.
Okay, well, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Typically, you wouldn't see something like that. And so it does make that a lot easier to set up and to...
Yeah. Well, it made the combat way easier for me to manage, though, once the Necromancer cast Ring of Death, because all the goblins are dead.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this goblin I call it simpler, too. And the goblin shaman was still alive, and he had very good stats, so he could still fight the Necromancer.
Yeah. So it's... I think the other thing for combat, which might make it better whether or not... It doesn't matter if there's a grid or not, is... So I was talking to you yesterday about fear and how the AI is amazing.
Yeah.
And does things like it'll kick over a shelf to get in to block your path, or it'll flip over a table to use as cover, or it'll tell its opponent, it'll tell like its friends, this person's around that corner, or this, or it'll be like, okay, we're breaching through this wall while you go through the window, and we'll surround them. Part of the reason they can do that in an older game, or in any game at all, is you can do a little bit of trickery to make that work, where the map designer and the AI designer come to each other and he says, all right, so what if we put like a thing here that was kickable by the AI, and we put a thing here that they can smash through, but there's also a door here they can go through.
Yeah.
And then instead of giving the AI, like you need a supercomputer to run the AI, instead you give it like 10 options.
Yeah.
And it just chooses one at random, or you give it like a criteria to sort them by which one's the best. And it's a lot easier to make an AI that appears very intelligent because the AI has perfect information of the room. And if you custom design the AI for each battle, then you can do that. So I think what you can do, 2nd edition does this. I don't know if 5th edition does or not. But more so, 4th edition definitely does this, which I think is 4th edition's biggest strength actually, is the tactics of the monsters.
Yeah, like if your enemy does this, they'll do this.
Where you... 4th edition almost does it too much, where you're not even... The DM isn't even playing.
The DM is just in charge of NOR gates and gates and OR gates.
The DM's just a computer, like executing commands. But in like the modules, for example, 4th edition, they show this very strongly. It's like the one I've been testing with. It says like eye blades will throw daggers from a distance until they run out of daggers, and then they will try to flank the PCs to get an advantage when attacking them. And then it says orcs will run forward immediately and try to engage the PCs before they can attack the eye blades.
Yeah.
And you're like, that just little detail is very cool. And you could upgrade that a little bit, like goblins will try to get up into trees, but they need to alert each other to the opponents. They're very short-sighted. So if a goblin's within 3 feet, he needs to spend an action alerting the other goblins of where they are or something like that.
So,
and then that way, combat is like, can any goblins see me? One goblin will be able to see you next turn. And you don't need a grid, but you still have interesting decisions.
So one of the things I would do, there's multiple things. Like, I basically decide, okay, this is how these units will act. Like, I basically decide that beforehand.
Yeah.
And they have a very unfortunate thing, which is one of the players in their party is any enemy that's evil will do their utmost best to kill this one player. Right. Because he had a blessing from a goddess, which made all evil monsters want to kill him.
Yeah.
And so even when they had the goblin ally on their team, it's like, oh, we're fighting the Necromancer. And he kept throwing fireballs at the Necromancer that was surrounded by the melee heroes.
Yeah.
Because the monk who had the blessing was there. So like, stop hitting me! And the goblin just kept like merrily throwing fireballs because it's trying to kill the Necromancer and the monk.
Yeah.
But so I do things where when the players would discuss what they're doing, it's like, okay, it says here goblins have keen hearing. And so my monsters, depending on their hearing and vision and level of intelligence, would listen to my players' metagaming and form counter strategies.
I think that's actually like, I don't remember where I read it, but it was basically assume that the monsters can hear the players talking to discourage them from spending too long. Yeah, I thought that was, I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but I like it.
I do that, basically.
At first glance, I like the idea. I don't know if there's some downside to it that...
I can piss off the players.
Yeah.
But I basically go like they come up with a plan, and then like one of the things I actually did is they were like talking outside of a room one time. And then they're like, okay, we're going to do this, like go in here, do all these things. And they kick open the door. And the monster inside is like has very good hearing. And so this thing's like standing behind the door. So they charge in the room and it's not there. And then it closes the door behind them and ruins their whole plan because like this sneaky monster is basically ready for them.
I think like, if they're at camp and they're like, we're going to assault the goblin camp tomorrow and this is what we're going to do, then fair enough. The goblins can't do anything. Yeah. But if on combat you're like, all right, you need to go there so I get the flanking advantage, then it's like, well, how do you suddenly have that inspiration? You could actually 5th edition literally has inspiration. You could be like, you could actually you could make a rule like you can spend inspiration to tell your opponent, the other players like a strategy.
Well, actually, there is a class, one of the fighter classes. I can't remember what it is, but he has maneuvers. Yeah, which he usually uses the maneuvers on himself. However, some maneuvers are command your allies to do this. I think it's the battle master actually. Yeah. So it's like inspire your allies to charge forward, and if they charge that turn, then they get advantage. Yeah. Or it's like make your allies more fierce fighters, and so they like get double attacks that turn. Or you can do a thing like make your give your friend a disengage. So he's basically like shouting out commands to people that give them actual advantages in the combat.
I think the main takeaway with D&D is it's such a in-depth, complicated game that it can't actually be complete. So any attempt to give rules that apply to any situations aren't going to work, and you have to...
It's a framework that...
You have to break.
Yeah, it's like a framework that you have to work around, and sometimes even the framework has to change. Yeah. And like a big part of it, I think, even like rules-wise, like there's a whole thing of like coming up what's going on in the world, like you come up with the players with that as well. But I think even rule-wise, like basically someone asks you, can I do this? They're basically saying, can we make this a rule? You're like, sure. And if you let them do that, then you have to let them sort of do it again if it's appropriate. So you're even changing the rules with the players. Like, oh, is this possible?
Yeah. And I don't think the mindset for D&D should almost be, this is a reasonable action, I'm going to do it. Like, not, can I do this, but, all right, I'm going to, I need you guys to make a framework of poles above the door, so I'm suspended above the door, and so I can drop on whoever comes in next. It's like, well, there's no rule for pole suspension. It's like, no, just give them like a construction check or something. And
no, it's basically I usually give people that lenience,
which is actually in the rules. It's the GM's job.
It's fun as well to do that.
The GM determines the outcome of things, and if something could go either way, they roll a die for it. Yeah, that is the two things the GM does.
It's actually a very simple game
at the core. Yeah, so GM tells you what happens if you do something. If the GM thinks it could go either way, they find the appropriate skill to match to the thing, and then they roll, and they tell you what happens if it fails or succeeds.
Yeah, as a DM, actually, one time I basically was playing with a bunch of new players,
which is actually like what the 5th edition rulebook says right at the start.
And I was like a little frustrated by these new players because a lot of them kept asking me, "Can I do this?" Like, "Oh, can I move here? Can I do this?" And I basically said, just tell me what you're going to do, and then I'll tell you if you can do it or not. Because I didn't like them asking, oh, can I do this? Can I do this? It's just like, say what you're going to do. And one of the players took that a little too far, where he wasn't a wizard, but he's like, I take the wizard's spell book and like cast this spell. I was like, okay, roll for that. And sometimes he'd roll 20s for things like that. And even though like 20 is like only critical hit forever, it's like, okay, this guy's a high intelligence, whatever. Fine, he gets to cast a spell. But I basically took it a little far, where his character's like, could do almost anything. Like, he would try to do the most absurd things. And a lot of the time, he would get, like, messed up by it. But sometimes it would work out. And he had a ton of fun with that. And a lot of other people really liked that. So it's basically like, yeah, sure, you can try these ridiculous things.
Yeah, the one, I think it came from playing too much, Fate Core or whatever it's called. Yeah. Eclipse Phase. Yeah. It was one of the issues was I didn't know what to do with it, because I could understand my players' frustration, but I also so what happened was a player saw a temple. Yeah. And they asked me, is there some sort of role I can do to see how I feel about the temple? And I said, how do you feel about the temple? Yeah. And they're like, no, but I want to know if there's like, and I think what they could have done is they should have said something like, I scout around the temple to see if anything's off, or maybe what they wanted was like their religion ability, let's say, to say like, oh, you noticed something strange in the air.
Mm-hmm.
I think it should be my responsibility as the DM to tell them that automatically without them asking, and also to do that reliably enough that they trust me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that could have been on me. Because if he had like a religion skill and he would have noticed something was off based on his religion skill, I should have just said, something seems weird about the temple. But I didn't say that. And also there was nothing weird about the temple. He was just oddly edgy of it.
Yeah.
It was...
One of my pet peeves as a DM, one of the things I absolutely hate is someone says, I roll to feel sad.
Or I
roll
use this ability.
Yeah. Or I roll to throw up.
Yeah.
Like, there's not even I roll to use this ability. It's like, they like, I want to roll for my emotion, or I roll to get drunk, or whatever. Like, they're like role-playing access that they roll for.
Yeah.
And
it's role-playing with ROLL.
Yeah, and so I... sometimes that frustrates me so much that's like, someone's like, I roll to drink.
Yeah.
And they roll a 2, and so they start choking, and they have to be saved by the party's cleric. Like, sometimes it's just like, fine, roll for it, but I'm going to take this to the extremes.
The one that annoys me is players say, I use my lockpicking skill on the door, rather than say, I picked the lock or something. Yeah. Or they'll say, okay, can I use my bard skill? For what? Well, I want to use my bard skill. For what? Well, I want to sing. Okay, so you want to sing. Yes. Okay. Give me a bard skill check. Like, they try to do your job almost.
Yeah.
And it's just because they know the game and they love the game.
Or the ones like
and rolling dice is fun.
Yeah, they roll the dice and then they say what they're going to do with the dice roll.
Yeah.
It's like ask like, I'm going to do this, or it's like, I'm going to make this check. Okay, roll. Like, say what you're going to do, then I'll tell you if you need to roll or not.
And I think, that could be the DM's fault though, because for instance, I don't think this was an issue actually, but we did one where you were in charge and I had a character that had an empathy skill.
Yeah.
Where he had to do empathy checks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that was like his top skill. I put like a lot of investment in his empathy skill. If you weren't telling me to make empathy checks on occasion, when in a situation where let's say I enslave someone, and you don't say do an empathy check, then I'm going to say, wait a minute, I need to do an empathy check. So I'll say, can I make an empathy check? Yeah. So maybe that didn't really happen in our game. Yeah. But that's just my example. If a player, maybe they feel like they're not getting enough checks on stuff that would take advantage of their abilities. Like, let's say the player has the ability to hold their drink, and every time they go drinking, they're just like, okay, they're like, no, I want to use my drinking ability. Yeah. Why are they doing this? And so they want the DM to do more, maybe. So one thing I heard from the Hackmaster GM book, which is basically the second edition GM book, in that it gives good advice, was you're allowed, I think it was, I don't remember, it was like, at any point, you can question, or maybe it was like 3 times per session or something, you can question a GM's decision. Mm-hmm. The GM can give you their final answer on it. Yeah. And if you still disagree with them, once per session, you're allowed to make them check the rule book, but only if you can do it in less than 5 minutes. If you are wrong about that, you're not allowed to do it again for the entire session or something. It was something like that. I don't remember. It was better than that, but something like that. But also, this rule only works with the second part, which is at the end of the session, the GM should ask all the players, name one thing you liked about the campaign, about this session, one thing you didn't like. So the players can say something like, there wasn't enough combat, or there was too much talking or something. And you're like, okay, so this player feels like they're not doing enough combat. Or you have another player saying, I didn't really get to join in combat, and because everyone was immune to range or something. You're like, okay, so we need more like range pincushions. So it's really useful for the GM. Yeah. Just to make a better campaign. And so maybe if a player, so then you could avoid this whole situation maybe if it was like, I didn't get to use my skill enough, that like my ability to hold drink skill or something.
I get to use on a character's based round, which is holding drink.
Yeah. So can we have like, I don't know, just more of those situations arise, or at least the situations are arising enough. It's just you're not making everyone check for it or something. Yeah. And so maybe it's communication.
Yeah, it's a communication and a balance.
Yeah, that's like a good DM will create good players to some extent, and good players will also make a worse GM. I don't know about that one, actually.
Good players will make the worst GM.
Well, maybe not, but players that think they know how to GM or think they could do better might not make good players.
They just make their GM grumpy. I think it should be like this. You think you know better than me, boy.
Then you be the GM and I'll play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. But yeah, grids. I was just I wasn't sure where I was on them.
Yeah, I think it was really situational, honestly.
Yeah.
And it also depends on your players. Like, if they're like, I really just want a grid so I can understand this combat. You're like, okay, fine, we can do grids, and you guys want to do a more tabletop battle game? We'll do that. If that's what you guys want to play. Or you can go, well, I'm not that kind of DM, so go find a different one.
So find a new one.
Yeah. Because I'm not willing to change for you guys.
So F you. That's short for find yourself a new one.
You are listening to The Fool and the Philosopher.
Yeah. Yeah. So to personally attack you.
Yep.
Do you think language is degrading? I think I've talked about this before, but well, actually, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna continue.
Okay.
So let's see. Game Explain I've been watching, right?
Yes.
And they will sometimes blend their words together or be lazy with their language.
Mm-hmm.
Or they will say things like cause instead of because.
Yes.
Or cuz instead of because. And there will be a lot of ums and ahs. Game Explain doesn't do that so much. And actually, no, ums and ahs I don't mind, honestly. Because in conversation... I say honestly. In conversation... See, when you do this, you just drive yourself crazy and you're not really fixing anything. But, look. The millennials are ruining language. Right? They're lazy. They don't have jobs. They don't have houses. They just eat avocado toast and slur their words. And they don't talk properly.
Well, this isn't a personal attack against me because I'm not a millennial.
See, it's all mumbling.
No, you're a millennial. I'm not a millennial.
Yeah. But the thing is, right? Millennials say a lot of likes, and they're lazy in their language. But the Zoomers,
I'm not a Zoomer.
They just mumble.
I'm not a Zoomer.
Because of their mumble rap.
I am not a Zoomer.
Yeah, you're Gen Z.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I am Gen Z.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or Gen I.
So Generation Z, right?
But Zoomers are not Gen Z.
Yeah, they are.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They invented the mumble raps. Well, that might have been millennials. I don't know.
Bad millennials.
But mumble rap is destroying our way of life, and people aren't speaking clearly and properly, and you had a speech impediment when you were younger, and now you don't, which is an impressive achievement. So anything you're doing is basically good on you.
I still have a speech impediment. I've just overcome it.
So I really can't say... I just started noticing you saying like and also like a few words slightly like bumbled, and it was driving me crazy, and it's probably more me noticing than actually a problem, and I'm sorry. But see, that way I can... So Alpha Rad, right? He is very self-aware, and he does it's like the infinite loop of self-awareness where he says, please subscribe, haha, being self-aware doesn't make it any better. He said that, literally. And it's true. So here's me insulting you, wanting to change you. But then I'm saying, well, yeah, but actually you're doing pretty good. But I still want you to change your horrible, annoying ways. But the thing is, by me acknowledging it, it's like, haha. But actually, like, deep down, I'm just like this person that's trying to change the world. And see, and the acknowledgement doesn't really make it better. And I guess I'm sorry.
I think that here's my opinion on that. You should... When you're like, oh, I'm going to be self-aware about this, like, you can do that as a joke, maybe. I'm like 50-50. But honestly, you should either just stick by your principle and not do it at all.
Yeah.
Or you should go for it and go, just, this is this here, and that's that.
You're right.
Like,
see, okay, so...
Do or do not. There is no try.
So I think I still am sorry to attack you.
Yeah.
But if you spoke like Total Biscuit, that would be much appreciated. Because,
All right, I will see what I can do.
Because my ears feel like they're getting filled with putty.
Give me 1 second.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a review of XCOM. All right, let's go.
Yeah, that's not Total Biscuit, but I like it.
Okay.
It's working for me. We've done this before. It's like every once in a while I'm going to snap and demand like it's just better voices.
So in one of my recordings that I did of gameplay,
yes.
I've been listening to a lot of the book, and I started speaking like one of the audiobook, basically speakers.
Yeah.
I started speaking their style, and one person commented, "I don't know what's wrong with your speech right now, but I really like him. Please continue." I'm like, this is completely unintentional. I'll just be listening to this audiobook series, and I really like the way this guy speaks, and I imitate what I hear.
Yeah, well, keep it up then. Come on, let's go to audiobook, Connor. Here's the thing, right? You choose your voice, so you can speak like whatever you want.
But then you get stuck and you forget that...
No, you should get stuck, because it's a better voice.
What do you sound like right now?
Like a radio announcer.
No, you don't. It's a character. I can't remember what.
Does your dog have fleas? Well, too bad.
You're shouting at
We sell glasses.
So you have a problem with them.
Well, that's actually almost better. I think what it is more is you're really excited and you're happy, right? And so you're talking very quickly and stumbling over your words.
Yes.
And so could you just be a bit more depressed, maybe?
Ow.
Yeah. And the reason I didn't say it earlier was because you were talking about something you were very passionate about.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know how much better I'm doing, honestly. And
we just sound like teenage girls squeaking over something.
And I don't want, if you're passionate about something and you're talking about it, I don't want to throw off your flow by saying, could you please talk a bit more like Total Biscuit?
Well, fine. I will go into voice training and practice radio for about 5 years. And then we'll see what I can do.
You better. Because, like, you know...
Because you can't tolerate talking with me.
Oh, no, I can talk to you. I just can't listen. I'm great at talking to you.
See, the problem with immediately switching to a different voice is you actually have to put part of your focus into the voice until you get used to it.
Yeah.
And so it takes away from your ability to actually speak elsewhere. So it takes a lot of training to get to the point where you can speak coherently.
So maybe don't speak differently, just slower. So every word you say, right? Here's the thing. When you speak fast, you're suggesting that you're afraid you're going to be interrupted. Fair enough, actually. But
I think I understand the problem here.
So you see, like I was saying with the GM. Oh, that's... Huh. That wasn't on purpose. Anyways. Like I thought that was on purpose.
I was about to say is. Like, I was going slowly. I was about to say is. And before I could say is, you just come zooming in like some sort of fighter pilot and just gun down my is. And I'm
so like I was saying with the GM. The problem is all on the players, not the... So see, what it is the GM might be doing something wrong, which encourages a bad playstyle in the players.
Yeah.
So by me not letting you talk, I might be making you talk subpar because you're afraid that I'm going to interrupt you if you take a moment to breathe.
Basically.
So what if we had little flags, right? And we held them up while we were talking.
No.
No?
No.
What if we get a hamster. And when it's our turn to talk, we hold the hamster. And then throw away the hamster, because I hate holding hamsters.
Oops.
If I pause to think, you might not know I'm pausing to think. You might think I want you to come in. And
because you see, most people have social, what are they called? Social hints and talking hints, where they actually have suggestions of I've stopped speaking or I'm stopping to think. People actually have these like hints that they give in conversations. You don't do those because you're incompetent.
No, mine will be a flag, right? So when I put the flag down, you're allowed to talk. And when I have the flag up, you're not allowed to talk because I'm still on my current thought.
But will this result in, like, I'm talking and, like, it's obviously, like, you have the flag down, and then you get bored and you just, like, flip the flag up to stop me?
Well, see, my thought is there's interruption tokens, right? And so we each start with an interruption token, or maybe I start with 2. And you're allowed to interrupt the person by passing them the token, but then they have the interruption token.
Are you trying to board gamify our podcast?
I'm trying to streamline it, just like try to make it so, because sometimes it's hard to know if someone's done talking or they're in the middle of something or they want you to come in. So if I have put my flag, I'm like, so Connor, what do you think? Then I put my flag down. But if I don't want you to talk, I say, so Connor, what do you think? And keep my flag up. And just to mess with you. I don't know why I do that. But I put it down, or I say, so that's my idea anyways. Oh, but actually, see, I can put the flag up and down, and the viewer, it doesn't like mess with the viewer, and it just makes it so it's a better listening experience for everyone, and you can talk slower in the confidence that I won't interrupt you, and you won't interrupt me, because we'll have the flag up, so we're immune to interruption, except for the tokens.
And you hold the flag.
No, we each get a flag. So you can only put your flag up when the other person's flag is down. We could even have like a sort of like they're at 90 degrees, and you have to like...
I do not want to have to add to my mental cognitions speaking slower and flag sign communication.
Could you also not make up words? So
mental cognitions?
Yeah. So
cognizance? Cognitions?
I don't know. I know what you meant, but
yes.
I don't know what you were. But I don't know if there's actually a word for it.
I think there is. Cogitations.
You are listening to The Fool and the Philosopher.
So maybe I need to wait for the right time to ask it.
All right.
Because it's kind of it's a question. It's a look. Okay, I guess if I brought it up, it's kind of the right time. There are questions that you might have that are legitimate questions that sound absolutely horrible if you say them.
Okay.
So here's an example, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that, and we can delete this if we need to.
I do not like you starting it with that.
It's not because it's a bad question inherently. It's just it sounds really bad.
All right.
So, and it sounds really, really bad. I'm slightly uncomfortable asking it even, right? So, if the Jews had been more sympathetic...
Just stop. If the Jews is how you're starting it. Okay, continue.
Had been more sympathetic, they might have been able to stop the Holocaust. Like could they have stopped the Holocaust as a question? Which...
No.
And sorry. Let me put this the right way. Not if people liked the Jews better, but if the Jews were kinder to the rest of the Germans.
No.
No.
You would have... What it would require is multiple things. One would be that Jews would have had to have an entirely different history because they are the scapegoat of history.
Definitely.
And so basically, Hitler didn't like Jewish people. And he didn't like several people. And what's his name? The other Himmler didn't like Jewish people. The person in charge of getting rid of them, Goebbels, basically started out by saying, to unify Germany, we have to have an enemy that's within our people, because we cannot start out unifying Germany by attacking someone else, because we have to be strong together. So we have to have an enemy within our country. So who's someone that's historically scapegoat that we can all dislike, and who do you dislike, my Führer, basically, or my, the leader? And so it's like, oh, here's some people I don't like. I don't like gypsies. I don't like these people. I don't like these people. So Goebbels basically said, all right, so now let's start a campaign to get rid of these people, because this will unite Germany. So it was basically Goebbels was almost manipulating Hitler by saying, who do you dislike? And he's like, oh, I dislike these people.
Yeah, so you could have gotten like Hitler on board, but if all the people had been against it, it might not have happened, but the people were for it for the most part, right? Like they had legitimate grievances with the Jews, like petty ones sometimes, and even like the more serious ones do not in any way justify the Holocaust.
Well, that's the second part to it, is the psychology of accepting the first lie. So the very first thing that was done to them was you have to wear a star, and like the star of distrust, like, oh, and there's the very, very starts was there's some big companies that are owned by Jewish people. Well, and they were making money while everyone else in Germany was having economic problems. And so it wasn't even going after the Jewish people before, it's going after, oh, these rich people, we're going to like spread out this company. By the way, they also happen to be Jews.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, we're going after Jews now. And then people are like, okay, we accepted going after these rich people because they're causing problems for us. now we're going to go after Jews. We just have to let people know who they are, so we're going to put stars on them. So we accept this now. So you've accepted 2 lies, and then you can just keep accepting more and more lies. Like, we have to make them a lesser citizen because they're dangerous, or we have to give them a higher tax. So we're going to give them more tax because they make more money. And people are like, yeah, I can accept that. And so you have that 3rd lie. Then you keep adding them up. And by the point in time where it's like, all right, now we have to bring them to, let's say, a death camp, the extreme, people are like, we have accepted like 50 small things about them that have slowly grown. We can't go back now because we've damned ourselves so much, or even like we've accepted at this point. This is just one more thing.
I wonder, like, so it's like, oh, the Jews are the center of all our problems because they are the rich people that stomp on us and stuff.
Yes.
With sympathy, could the Jews have looked around and said, we're at the top, we're the rich ones? And of course, the problem is,
Germany's...
if all the rich people were Jews, that in no way means that all Jews are rich people.
Yes.
It's a statistical mistake that's made all the time. A great joke I saw was, I think, CNN or something, like a fake CNN report, said, you have a 1 in 10 chance of being mugged in Detroit or something. That means 9 out of 10 citizens of Detroit are thieves, which sounds right, but it's not. That's like, it's like, it doesn't sound right really, but it sounds right just quickly. You're like, yeah. And that's the same thing with saying, wait a minute, all the rich people are Jews. All the Jews are rich and holding us down. That's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Or even all the Jews are rich is not the same thing. Yeah. The holding us down doesn't matter either way. But if all the top people were like, wait, we all have a similar demographic. We don't want to unite anyone against us. So let us raise some others up. Let us lower ourselves, or let us divert them. Let us, so let's get like let's get a gypsy up here. Let's get a Frank up here. Let's get a Teuton up here, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe they could have like diverted from themselves in a way.
Well, I think part of it is they didn't know that was coming.
Yeah.
Because another whole part of it was that allowed it, I was reading about this, is a weird thing, which is the guilt of the wealthy, which is, it was talked about a bit in Iran, I looked into a bit more, which is when a government does a seizure of something you own, let's say, like communist governments take over and they seize from the rich, this happens. A very small percentage of rich people will go, yeah, I deserved it, I still have plenty, I've lived a good life. A very, very small amount of people will accept that. And when you see someone's accepted that, you're slightly more willing to accept that. And so they don't fight back as much because like a part of you hasn't fight back. And like you do need someone to step up, but it's hard for people to step up. And basically, like they could have raised other people up, but like from their perspective, why should they? Everyone's in a bad system right now in Germany. Because like that, what Germany was in, like Germany sucked because of the depression that they got basically from the war thing, right? So you're doing well. So why do you have to help other people? Because Jewish people are very focused on family. And so part of the thing is they're looking after their family. And like I'm looking after my family and myself. I'm doing a lot. Like I'm making sure my family's good. I've done a lot. And maybe even like, and I could help my friends out, but for like giving people handouts, people don't always like handouts. Like their perspective almost is people should also have the ability to do this. So I can offer people like, hey, you can work for me, but you're not going to just give someone something for free.
Like Jewish tradition is family.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean Jews are focused on family, to be clear when talking about this.
Yeah.
Which can be similar, but isn't always.
Yeah, I'm talking about the major percentages of research almost.
Or I wouldn't even... It's just the cultural tradition.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they follow it.
Yeah.
It would be like saying French people eat spicy food. Or you could say... I mean, that's not... Well, I don't even know if that's a thing. But you know that idea of like...
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not... Obviously, you're not defined by anything. Well, obviously, you're not defined by your culture.
Yeah.
You
But
can't.
basically, you're asking is, could the Jewish people in this case, like, if other people decide not to go after them?
Yeah, if they had like, hey, these people are suffering, let's invest back into the community, and
Yeah.
and then they won't look at us, or they won't have issues, or they will think we're just suffering alongside them, or we are the ones helping them. And the point in the end is probably not, right? Like they probably couldn't have done much to help themselves, and even if they could, why would you? Because you're like, it's not even like family versus the wider community. It's just like, what can I actually do, and why should I bring myself down to help all these other people that haven't done to deserve it or something?
Yeah.
Or like I said, not all Jews are rich. So if you would even have to avoid Jews to change the perception, even if you just want to help everyone. And then that just gets weird on its own, because then you have poor Jews resenting rich Jews or something. But the point in the end of this whole thing is not anything to do with that. I think it's an interesting question.
Yeah.
But it sounds pretty bad.
Yeah.
And even talking about it might sound bad, which is why I clarified there, which I don't need to entirely. But when you I've noticed this when you hear people talk on like a podcast or anything like a YouTube channel or something.
Yeah.
The only access you have to the person is what they've said.
Yeah.
And you get a really unnuanced and incomplete version of the person.
Yeah.
Like Alpharad said something recently I didn't like, but he seems like a really reasonable guy in every other area. So what's more likely, that he just hadn't thought through the idea, or he hadn't said entirely what he meant, or that he's suddenly different from his like entire message on this one issue, and it's strange, and like it's just he was just talking off the top of his head, and if you asked him from a different angle, he'd probably give an answer that sounded different.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot more to it than just the soundbite answer. So it's, if you just say like, the Jews are family focused, on one hand you're saying, okay, here's a culture that does this, and then if someone's looking at you from a different perspective, they're like, man, this person's like making them sound like a different race, or a different, like, well, literally a different race, but like a different, like an alien race, or like a different species or something, the Jews.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of interpretation of the listener, and so it makes people afraid. There was a great example in the UK recently where a politician was asked to define what a woman was. I don't know if you saw that.
I don't think I did.
So they asked her, like, what's a woman? And she froze. And you might think, as an outsider, that's absurd. Like, why would you freeze? Just define it, like someone with XX chromosome, and then you could, like, you could expand upon that if you wanted.
What a pitfall of a question, though.
But you could expand upon that if you wanted. You could be like, someone with an XX chromosome. However, there are some people with like XXY or XYX or something, that you can also be women. And then there's also people with the mind of a woman, and they count as a woman. Or you could say they don't count as a woman. It's your TV show, right? You're the politician. You make the stance you want on that.
Yeah.
I think it's weird to make a stance on another person. Like, let's say like those what are they called? Aetherians or whatever? Like those people that think they're like secretly a wolf or something, like
the otherkin.
Yeah, otherkin, right?
Yeah.
It sounds crazy to me, but I'm not that. Maybe they are secretly a wolf. And I think to the point where it doesn't impact my life, I will not question that idea.
Yeah. If
people who are otherkin suddenly need science and research devoted to their thing, that would, like, all people must donate half their income to researching the ethereal plane, I might start taking objections with the notion.
Yeah.
Until that point, I don't really care. And so, so you don't really need to take a political stance with those sort of things for the most part, I think.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's different. In some cases, maybe you do. And so it makes me sound like super hedgy, but it's just what I'm trying to convey is that anyone is a lot more nuanced than you might think.
Yes.
You can talk, Like, I had a friend who said another friend of mine was racist, and I was the friend who has a bunch of friends of different races. Yeah, that makes sense. It's just not... It's obviously not true just based on observation, but they might have said something that seemed racist, or might have even been racist, and maybe it was a joke, maybe it was ignorance, maybe it was on purpose, and they just felt that way. But as a whole, they are not a racist person. And so going back to like this question, it's a very simple question in some ways. You just say, well, a woman is anyone who wants to be a woman. Or you can say a woman is someone with an XX chromosome. Or you can say a woman is anyone with the physiological brain of a woman. Or, you know, there's many options. And she froze because, like you said, it's a bit of a dangerous question.
Yeah, it's a landmine of question, especially for a politician.
Yeah.
You basically have to decide, like, for a politician, you basically have to decide, okay, who's my, like, first, if you're already a part of a party.
Yeah, yes, she was. And
yeah,
it's like...
So she's a part of a party, then you have to decide,
what's my party stance?
what's my party stance? The people in my riding,
Yeah.
because that's important, what's their stance? My own opinion, like, I do have an opinion, and that's why I'm a part of this party, so maybe I should give my opinion. Or maybe I should go with a safe answer and go, okay, this is like the safest answer I can give. Or maybe I should give like the best answer for my party. Or maybe I should abstain from answering this question.
And if someone asks me a question, what is a woman? That's such a
like
obvious seeming answer. Is it a trap?
Yeah, why are they asking me this? Like,
yeah,
there's so much for a politician to consider there.
Like, what answer do they expect me to say that they can use as a aha, I got you sort of thing?
Yeah.
And the fact that it was such a scary question is a little crazy, but you can kind of sympathize.
Yeah.
But it's also, it seems absurd from another perspective. But
if you take a step back, it seems absurd.
Yeah. But politicians are hyper aware of how dangerous it is to say things, which I think they actually are a bit too cowardly.
There's this unfortunate thing, which is at one point, like I play with this group of people, and I was like, hey, is it okay if I record us playing this game?
Yeah.
And one guy said, no, don't, because I want to be a politician in the future. And I speak a lot of shit when I'm having fun with my friends. And I don't want that to be on record for when I try to go into politics.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I won't do it then. But it's just like that case where he's like, I say like really horrible stuff because my sense of humor is quite twisted. And
I think that's why no. How do I... He's just amazing, isn't he? So, I'm gonna have to. So, Trump, right? Like, I don't like talking about him in a way because everyone talks about him, but they talk about him because he's really good at getting people to talk about him.
Yes.
And that's why I think he's amazing, because that's incredible. Yeah. How many people are on the tip of everyone's tongue? Like, that's amazing. Yes. It's like he's Louis XIV or something.
Yeah.
And,
or Julius Caesar.
He might actually be very careful in what he says, but he doesn't give the impression of being very careful. And a lot of people don't like him for that. But a lot of people do like him for that. And I think the people that like him for that, it's because they're like, come on, you should be able to live your life even if you're a politician.
Yeah.
Everyone says stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone is more nuanced than they appear. You shouldn't have to walk on eggshells for your entire life because you want to represent people. You're not it's like, I need to act inhuman because...
Yeah, you represent people more if you're actually you.
I want to act inhuman so I can represent humans. That is like the most like British upper class thing ever.
Yes.
It's like, yes, I do not poop. I am a proper gentleman.
Yes. I sweat.
No, I do. I have no bodily functions.
Yes.
I never remove myself from this perfectly clean suit.
Yes, I am never seen without this hat except when I am in official, respectful functions.
Yes. I never take off this hat except in a woman's presence or in a church.
Yeah.
Or in bed. But only once the lights have been turned out.
Yes. I sometimes forget to take off my hat when I'm going to bed.
That's weird.
Or glasses.
So...
Yeah, it's very much... It's right, like politicians do sort of detach themselves from humanity almost.
And it also leads... Like, questions like, the one I asked, like, if the Jews had been more sympathetic, could it have stopped the Holocaust?
Yeah.
What if someone doesn't like the stuff you said? I didn't know about. That was some interesting stuff, and I wouldn't have learned about it.
Yeah, and that
otherwise.
wouldn't have come up if you hadn't asked that question.
And I think your argument was, assuming your facts are correct.
Yeah,
it was fairly solid, and it's like, okay, yeah, sure, I'm convinced. I didn't care about the answer. I was just curious about the surrounding information, and your information has basically made me think, yeah, they probably couldn't have done anything.
One of the big things that I've found out about World War II, like, yes, Hitler was a pretty horrible person, but you take Goebbels, and this is basically a guy who was surrounded by mentally unstable people, and he basically pushed them in a direction. He's basically wanted to see what would happen, and so he just started like pressing these people further.
I even think like World War II was, I think World War II was mostly inevitable. Like it wasn't.
Yeah.
World War I definitely. World War II maybe could have been avoided, but even then it was.
World War II could have been done differently.
Like I don't think World War I could have been avoided really, but World War II maybe. But like
when you're playing a video game, like a big strategy game, and everyone has their big armies. They want to see what happens when they smash the toys together.
Yeah.
And then finally when you've done it, you realize that it's really harsh, and maybe you'll do it again, but after that second time it's kind of silly, and you probably want to avoid that.
Yeah. But if people are afraid to ask those questions, then they'll be forced to either not know or draw their own conclusions based on an uneducated view. And I think it's no such thing as a stupid question, I guess. But also like a question like that, me who's someone that thinks that, it made me feel uncomfortable, and I did all that hedging around it, even though I'm a fairly hedgy person, but I still can be a little harsh at times. Mm-hmm. And like listen to some of the earlier episodes for examples.
Well, I've very much lost the need, besides personal safety, for requirements of being careful, I guess. It's like a self perception thing where you don't want people to hate you, but if they're not giving you the chance, do you really care what they think about you? Yeah, I guess. But you also want to convey yourself the way you are. I also want to give a true impression of myself, not a one-sided sort of thing. But I can't. I really can't. And I think the best thing you can do is to, like, someone like Jordan Peterson with his enforced monogamy or whatever. Like that was him playing with an idea, right? Yeah, it was. He was asked. It's almost like there's this problem. Is this a solution? Yeah. Here's a solution that could work. Could it? Like here's a solution. Here's what it would do. I think. It's basically what he's saying. But it's you listen to that and you might draw a conclusion, good or bad, from him. But it'd be unreasonable to do either. Really, what you should do if you want to form a conclusion on him is see the rest of the stuff he has, and then see, or like read. I've seen a lot of people say a lot of things about Jordan Peterson. He's a really interesting case. I think he's fascinating. The amount of people how divisive he is. Yeah, and I've seen people say that. Good things about him, bad things about him. And I could see, like, depending on your view, I could see him being a good or bad person, depending on what you see. Like, if you think communism's the way, for example, he's very anti-communist. And if you think he's bad, then fair enough, because, he goes against your fundamental beliefs. However, I've seen people say he's like a sort of a hack or like a pseudo-intellectual or something. And that is wrong, whether or not you believe what he says. Like, if you read Maps of Meaning, that was not written by a fraud. That is written by one of the most intelligent people on earth. He thinks a lot. He's not. I'm sure that there might be millions of people more intelligent than him, but he's up there. He is obviously very, very, very smart. Yeah, and you just can't deny it. Like, you can hate him, but you can't deny it. Yeah, and to do otherwise, it just tells me that you haven't actually looked at his stuff. But you could argue, like, it's if you were turned off of Mao's Book of the Fallen, then you just aren't aware of how great a book it is. But
On the other hand, it is a great book, but
Maybe it's not for you. Maybe it's a little too confusing, or
so
it's a little too slow. It's like
maybe you're a little too slow and you get confused easily.
or maybe it's a really depressing book and you don't want to read it.
It's so maybe you think you've like because everyone thinks there's a point where they've seen enough. Like the Dawn of Wonder. I have a friend he swears is his favorite book out there. It's called Dawn of Wonder. I read halfway through and I gave up because I was like, okay, I've seen enough. I've read 500 pages.
Yeah.
And this isn't going anywhere and it's really boring and it's...
Tapestry for me. My friend's like, you should read this whole series. I'm like, yeah, he said it picks up and it's like, yeah, it picks up by book 2. And I was like, I read book 1. I'm
so
going to keep going.
Maybe you've decided you've seen enough of Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't think you can actually call him stupid if you read like Maps of Meaning or something.
Yeah.
So I don't know where that line is. Like Fiona over Tapestry, I read the whole thing and I think it's okay. Like I think it was really slow.
Yeah.
I don't think it's bad.
I didn't think it was bad. I just found it so slow and I couldn't keep track of it because I was too bored from reading it.
So
it wasn't a book for me. It was well written.
But something like Dawn of Wonder, I don't actually think is a very good book. But maybe it really picks up, or maybe the plot. Like my friend really liked it, and it did have some cool parts to the plot. So maybe like he listened to it as an audiobook, and if it's just in the background and you listen to like every fourth sentence because you're kind of distracted, it could be like, oh, that's cool. Like you might not care as much about how long it drags on.
Yeah.
Because if you miss like 400 pages, you haven't really missed anything. Well, and
like
I hope that the author of the Fiona over Tapestry, of Dawn of Wonder, has a podcast, and they're like making as much fun of me, or not. I'm not making fun of them. I just don't like their book, so I hope they're as harsh to me.
It's a weird thing with audiobooks, honestly, because like I really enjoyed this Silmarillion. And I really enjoyed The Lord of the Rings. And I listened to both of them on audiobook. And I found them very interesting. And then my friends say those books are incredibly dry. And I was like, I don't find them all that dry. And I found it really interesting. Like, oh, you're listening to it on audiobook. And they sort of like almost a dismissal of like you cheated to get through them.
I saw this... Okay. I saw like the strangest video where it was talking about like... putting in the work so that your life's better versus doing the easy path and your life gets worse, sort of thing.
Yeah.
The video is called something like The Graph That Changed My Life. And so he said, you eat healthy, you don't like doing it, but then you feel great, so it's worth it, sort of thing. He said, reading a book, it's not fun and it's a lot of work, but it's better than watching a TV show. And I was watching that and I was, why? Like, reading a book, it's harder for me to watch a TV show than for me to read a book. Reading a book is like breathing to me. Like, it's easier than breathing because if I just sit there and breathe, it's meditation, and meditation's really hard. Reading a book, I breeze through them. So it's really individual. Mm-hmm. And if reading a book is such a struggle, then maybe like just because of some inferiority complex doesn't mean you actually need to read. Like if you enjoy watching TV more, watch TV.
Yeah.
So like audiobooks, if they're more entertaining to you, then listen to audiobooks. Don't be like, you listened to the audiobook. I read them. I suffered through the book. Yeah. Therefore, I enjoyed it more.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I notice a lot of details in as well from listening to audiobooks because I have a good memory for small details, and I miss those a lot of time when reading. But when I listen to audiobooks, I can remember a lot of them because, like, I have memory more based around hearing things, and so like that's actually one of the important things for audios for me is. I recall stuff better from audiobooks, and so I can like, draw this back up. Like this was a cool thing that happened in the book.
Yeah.
So like I can read and I do enjoy reading, but also the thing I like about audiobooks a lot of the time is the reader. Because like the readers can sound pretty fun sometimes and really get into it. Like the Wheel of Time, when it says like a character shouted, the audiobook reader doesn't shout, but he raises his voice and makes it louder. Like the character's voice broke. Like, the guy will actually, like, make his voice break and go all deep and sad. Like, he really gets into it. And so that, like, adds a different element to it. Like, I'm getting it from that reader's perspective, but it's an experience of, I'm getting it from his perspective.
Yeah, I have to convert normal speech into like, he said or he cried. Just, just to get the correct tag on the emotion so I know what they're doing. It's like, he laughed. Yes, okay.
Just saying there really look. He laughed. Oh yes, very good. He laughed. Ha ha. Oh, he cried. Sniffle, sniffle.
No. See that's in its natural form. I have to convert real world interactions into text, so I can.
Oh yeah, you're so inundated by books that when you're sitting there and people are speaking to you, you have to think he said or he cried or he laughed.
So I know what emotion to feel.
I don't believe you.
To some extent, I do think like that, but not like that. Like it's if I describe something, like let's say a tower surrounded by flaming green rocks, right? That is the image, those words, right? Actually, in this one case, I can kind of visualize it, which is unusual for me. But normally, I don't visualize images.
Yeah.
I heard someone talk like there's this really weird Yahoo question where someone says, I like to close my eyes and put my fingers on my eyeballs and then move my eyes back and forth rapidly, and I can feel my eyes moving under my eyelids. And if I do it at a steady rate, it's really neat. So I imagine I'm watching a ping pong match and following the ball back and forth. And like, I couldn't do that. Like, I don't actually see something when I imagine something. So there's nothing for me to like follow with my eyes. But I don't see the words, but the words are in my mind and that's enough for me.
Yeah.
And that's how I visualize the world.
Whereas I generate basic things on the latest medium I've seen. Like you've shown me an anime and I think about stuff. I'll think about in the animation form of that anime. Like I'll think about that medium. If I'm staring at the real world a lot, then things in my mind are in the medium of the real world.
You see, I can't I do not.
You can't even comprehend that.
I don't picture images, and so I don't know if people actually picture images.
Well, I don't think it's more like a feeling of what they are. For me, but I can sort of start to form them in my mind. I don't know. It's
like a feeling of what they are. I can sort of get, but I define that feeling in the words, whereas you could define it in the imagery. But like watching a ping pong match, for example, I don't really. I guess I can sort of like, but it would be like those dreams where you're blind but can still see, maybe, would be the best way to describe me imagining images, where it's like a blind person who is blind from like a stroke or something, so they can actually see, like if you tell them to follow you and you walk around them in a circle, they can follow you, but their mind doesn't let them see, just their subconscious. Or like that article you sent me about that woman who could write but not read. She could actually read. Like they asked her like to look at words, and if it was like compost, she'd be like, "Ooh, that's not very nice." Or she'd be like, or it'd be like cucumber, and she's like, "Ooh, I love that." Or like she would get mail, and she would be like, "Hey, this one's for me, this one's for me, that one's for you, that one's for you," and they'd be like, "What do they say?" And she's like, "I have no idea." So she could actually read the words, she just couldn't comprehend them.
Yeah.
Which, it's really weird to think of those two things as being divided.
Yeah. So there's actually like this condition where you show people images, like a drawing, and they actually can't see drawings.
Yeah.
Like you like draw a circle with some lines coming off it. They actually can't see that. Like they can't form that in their mind, and they just see like this weird thing. Like they're told, draw what you see here. Yeah. And so like show us a picture of an apple, and then they might like get like a few forms of the apple.
Yeah.
But it would be this weird thing that wasn't completely connected.
Yeah, that's if you cut a person's brain in half, I believe. That happens. If you do it's not a lobotomy, it's like for seizures. It's a treatment for seizures, is you divide the connection between the two halves of the brain. Yeah. And then that happens, I think.
Yeah, it's also just a condition that can occur without that.
That's probably the same event though. Yeah. They've become disconnected or something. But
yeah, so it's like it's such a weird thing to try to comprehend almost.
Yeah. So that's kind of how, if I said I saw images, that's what I would imagine is I can picture the form of the images, but I can't actually comprehend them. And I think that's what people are doing when they say they see images, but I don't know. Maybe they're actually seeing like a vivid picture. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, I think like when I think about someone's name, then I can sort of go, okay, that's their face, and I think about it a bit more. Then I can sort of like get a feeling of this is what their face looks like. Or it's like, okay, there's an apple in my hand. I can look at my hand. I don't see an apple appear in my hand, but then I can basically in my mind project this is the scene I'm seeing, and I can put apple into that scene and have the feeling that I have an apple in my hand.
Right.
But it's not like I'm seeing the image. It's not like actual vision seeing. It's like a different kind of seeing, like the whole mind's eye thing. It isn't the sense of vision. It's, I don't know, it's like this different thing that
So it's
think
not
that's
like
related.
So it's not like looking at a picture.
No, it's like looking at the thoughts of a picture, almost like looking at what a picture is.
Because
Like it's like like let's say that poster right there. So that poster with the eagle.
Yeah.
Then like close your eyes and think about like what's all the elements that are in it. So there's like the big cloud eagle, and then there's the cliff.
But you're not like, okay, and in that bottom left, let me just look down in my memory. Oh, there was. You don't do that.
No, it's like, and there's these things down here, and
You're
then,
remembering the elements of it.
Yeah, I'm remembering the elements, and like,
Okay.
but then I say I have the talent to make 3D things in my mind. Actually, I don't know if that's a skill or not, but I can actually like come up with something entirely new, and I can come up with that concept, and then I can sort of translate that concept down, but it's never going to be right.
Because you haven't actually visualized it.
Yeah.
So there's actually several pictures, I guess you could say. I have actually what I would consider memorized.
Yeah.
Like I could actually like, oh, what happens if I turn it's an M&M in my hand, and I can, if I turn it over, I can sort of like, oh, that's what was on the back, and it was like that, and the floor looked like that, and it's an image I can actually look at.
Yeah.
And that's like, there's like, that's the only thing ever basically that I can do that with.
Yeah.
And because I was staring very heavily at an M&M.
Yeah, that's so you could eat it.
Well, sort of, yeah. I mean, I was told I was allowed to eat it if I memorized it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I could have just eaten it anyways, I guess. But
Yeah, but
I might have not gotten more.
Yeah.
It's like one of those like Heinlein novels or something where the kids like trained with all these weird tasks to like memorize the color of the rooms they're in and stuff. It's like you must memorize the M&M before you can eat it. It's like I had some sort of like detective training when I was younger.
Well, our mom subconsciously counts steps.
Yeah. Well, there's 12 there, and there's...
See, I don't do that, but you and our mom do that.
On the back, I think there's 14, but I don't take that often enough. Yeah, and everyone's got their own little things, but I think a lot of the differences between people are just different ways of describing the same thing.
Yeah.
Because how you're describing that eagle poster is, I think, how I actually memorize it. I just don't call it an image because I don't see an image. I see the elements of the image. Yeah. I'll say, oh, there's 14 eagles or something, and there, let's see, one of them was like a cloud eagle, so that would be near the top, and then there was like an eagle in the middle, a big one, and then there's the cliff eagle, and then there's like a smaller eagle behind that one, and then so I'm just remembering the elements of it, and they might be in the wrong order even, I don't know. Yeah. But is there a birdhouse on top of that mammoth's head? Yes. Oh, that's a sticker though, right? Yeah. Okay.
I have a lot of posters in my room, and some are modified.
I was like, that poster makes no sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, shall we wrap it there?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I think the imagery is actually, I don't know. I don't know if anyone actually sees images. I'm curious now.
Yeah.
Because
it's like I don't see images, but like it's not like seeing with your eyes. It's like a foreground almost of something that thinks it's imagery, but it isn't. I don't know.
Yeah. I just call it like the elements, and I see them almost in like a list of like, this is the components that make it up. Like you know, in my mind, it's like a swirling cloud, and if I focus, I can put it together and get a better construction. You ever like look at RimWorld? Sorry, not RimWorld. Dwarf Fortress, the dwarves in Dwarf Fortress. Yeah, they have like if you look at them, they're just a series of tags, and it'll be like wounded knee, this much tissue damage, male, like 2 arms, 2 legs. It's just a series of tags. Yeah. And that's kind of how I'd say I memorize things, but not in words. It's just, I can then take all those elements and say, well, they must fit together in this order, sort of. And and so I don't call that seeing an image, but I don't know if anyone really sees an image for the most part. Yeah. But maybe it's like
the best way they can describe it
is like the impression of an image.
It's the way they view it, I think.
But then again, like with the M&M thing, it is almost an image. Yeah. And actually, looking outside, like not like closing your eyes and imagining something, like an apple in your hand sort of thing, I can kind of do that actually.
Yeah, it's very hard, but you can sort of, like certain things that you know well, you can project,
like fire is a lot easier, I find.
Yeah, fire is the one that good people, for me, it's like a spear in my hand, like making a shape, holding it, then I can sort of like, okay, there's now a spear in my hand.
I have a friend, he has an issue where the corners of all furniture. He sees lasers coming off of,
Yeah.
and he doesn't like crossing it.
Well, I used to have a problem which would make me like have trouble getting sleep at night, which was
A spinning object.
an eyeball in my mouth.
Oh.
Where I'd have my mouth slightly open, and then imagine an eyeball, and it like keeps rolling against my tongue and like stuck around my teeth and mouth, and it's like this within my teeth.
Well, that's disgusting.
And it would make it so I couldn't sleep because I was like really disturbed by this, and like I'd keep like taking it out of my mouth, and then it'd just appear back there no matter what I did. And that was like a problem I had.
Well, now I will too. But no, mine is always like a spinning object that I want to spin the opposite direction. Like it's always like rotating this way, and it's like I can't visualize it spinning the opposite direction. It's always like going one way.
And now that those are infused in your mind, the end.
Yeah.